The location of Johann Sebastian Bach's remains. Johann Sebastian Bach, born on March 31st, 1685, in Eisenach, Germany, is celebrated as perhaps the greatest composer in the history of music. He came from a prolific family of musicians and began his musical education early, being taught by his father and elder brother. Bach's career spanned various roles, including organist and Kapellmeister. His career culminated in his appointment as cantor of St. Thomas Church in Leipzig in 1723, where he served until his passing on July 28, 1750. Bach's burial and the subsequent history of his remains is a story filled with mystery and rediscovery, as well as an open question as to whether that mystery has been solved. When Bach died in 1750, he was buried in an unmarked grave in the St. John Cemetery in Leipzig. At that time, he was respected as an accomplished local organist and composer, but he was not yet the legendary figure he would become. As the years passed, the exact location of his grave was forgotten. However, as the location of his grave was forgotten, his compositions went, to put it in modern terminology, viral. In 1894, a significant effort to locate Bach's remains was initiated. Guided by local oral tradition and the account of an elderly gardener who claimed knowledge passed down through generations, an excavation was conducted. The search was led by a professor of anatomy at Leipzig University. His team exhumed several skeletons from oak coffins, one of which they believed matched the physical characteristics of Bach, who was around 65 years old at his passing. This skeleton was subsequently reinterred in a crypt under the altar of St. John's Church, and tradition has since held that these are his remains. However, significant doubts about the accuracy of this identification have persisted over the years. In 1949, further analysis was carried out when Bach's remains were moved to their current resting place at St. Thomas Church, where he had spent much of his professional life. An oral surgeon conducted an examination of the skeleton, noting specific signs of occupational stress which he believed were consistent with Bach's life as a musician. However, skeptics have disputed these findings, and further have posited that even if these findings are true, this does not prove that the remains are that of Bach. Skeptics point heavily to the initial identification of his remains in 1894, noting that this was based on less than rigorous methods and relying on potentially unreliable oral tradition. Further, the 1894 expedition was conducted with all the grace of a 19th century archaeological dig, that is to say, absolutely no grace whatsoever. Bones were mixed and damaged during the excavation, making it possible that the wrong skeleton was attributed to Bach. However, despite these issues, many accept the remains as those of Bach, despite the lack of absolute certainty. Today, Bach's alleged remains continue to lie in St. Thomas Church in Leipzig, Germany, where he had served as cantor, and where his music continues to be performed till this day. Would you, could you, on a train? On September 27, 2016, an eerie emergency alert system, or EAS message, was broadcast in upstate New York. This unusual message, which included the phrase, "Would you, could you, on a train?" appeared during a test on WKTV, a local television station. The message immediately drew attention due to its cryptic nature and the peculiar coincidence that followed. Just 2 days later, on September 29, 2016, a tragic train accident occurred at the Hoboken Terminal in New Jersey. A New Jersey transit train arriving from Spring Valley, New York, failed to stop and crashed into the terminal at high speed. The impact ended one person, injured over 100 others, and caused significant damage to the station. This incident coincided with the end date mentioned in the EAS message, which added to the mystery and speculation surrounding the broadcast. The crash investigation revealed that the train engineer, Thomas Gallagher, suffered from severe, undiagnosed sleep apnea. This condition likely contributed to his fatigue and inability to control the train properly. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, concluded that Gallagher's undiagnosed sleep apnea and fatigue were the primary causes of the accident. Additionally, the investigation pointed out that New Jersey Transit, NJT, had failed to follow their own internal guidelines for sleep apnea screening. This could have identified Gallagher's condition earlier had the protocol been followed. The unusual coincidence between the cryptic EAS message and the train crash led to numerous conspiracy theories. Many have speculated that there must have been some sort of foreknowledge of the accident, based upon the odd EAS message. However, there is no evidence to support these claims, and the incident appears based on current evidence to be a bizarre and tragic coincidence. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't do anything. This is a suggestion by patron and Discord member, Monoxide Wendigo. Have you ever heard the quote, "That's the beauty of it, it doesn't do anything"? Everyone seems to know this quote, but digging a bit below the surface, this famous quote is actually an interesting unsolved mystery. Numerous sources indicate that the quotation can be attributed to a work of Aristotle or to Lao Tzu by way of the Tao Te Ching. Other sources cite Homer Simpson or other popular characters as having used the phrase. However, there's no evidence whatsoever to attribute this phrase to any of these sources. This ubiquitous phrase appears to have likely originated from a combination of sources and cultural contexts, rather than from a single definitive moment. One of the earliest documented uses of a similar phrase comes from the TV show Burke's Law, which aired from 1963 to 1965. In the episode Who Killed 7-Eleven, an inventor is asked to explain the purpose of a machine and responds in a somewhat familiar way. "Well, nothing. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Every machine in the world does something, but not mine. This is my rebellion against efficiency." Clearly not quite as pithy as the modern version of the phrase, but all the elements are there. Another notable mention is the quote, "useless machine," or useless box. This machine's only purpose whatsoever is that you can switch it off by pressing an off switch. This was a popular gag gift in the 1960s, sold around the time that Burke's Law aired. Over time, the phrase has been adopted in multiple contexts, from philosophical musings to humorous observations about gadgets and inventions that serve no practical function. This evolution has cemented its place in popular culture, despite, or perhaps because of, its ambiguous origins. My hypothesis is that Burke's Law is almost certainly the starting point of this saying. Based on my research, this is not definitely known, but given that the phrase was not attested prior to Burke's Law, this is strong circumstantial evidence in favor of this hypothesis. Viewers likely paraphrased and simplified the original line, making it more concise and memorable. As it was quoted and requoted in various contexts, the phrase was refined to its current form. Further, having the episode air around the time the quote, "useless machine" had achieved some degree of virality, gave people a frequent context to drop the phrase. For instance, if you bought the useless machine for a coworker and they asked you what it does, you could drop that hot new phrase, "That's the beauty of it. It doesn't do anything." Terry Davis and TempleOS. TempleOS is an operating system that stands out not just for its unique technical aspects, but also for the story of its creator, Terry Davis. Davis was a highly talented yet deeply troubled programmer who developed TempleOS single-handedly over the span of a decade. Terry A. Davis was born on December 15, 1969, in West Allis, Wisconsin. He showed an early aptitude for computers and programming as a teenager. Davis pursued a degree in electrical engineering at Arizona State University and worked for several years as a programmer in Silicon Valley. However, His promising career was derailed in the mid-1990s when he began to experience symptoms of mental illness, eventually being diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1996. In 2003, Davis started working on what would become TempleOS. He believed he was receiving direct instructions from God to build an operating system that would be a modern-day third temple, a place where people could commune with the divine. Davis envisioned TempleOS as a tool for this sacred purpose, incorporating numerous biblical references and elements. The operating system was initially known as J Operating System, then Luzthos, and later Sparrow OS, before finally being named TempleOS in 2013. TempleOS is distinctive for its use of a programming language created by Davis called Holy See. And I just have to take a moment here to point out that Holy See is probably the best possible pun for a programming language rooted in Christian tradition. This language, along with the operating system, reflects Davis's profound technical skills and his unconventional approach to software development. The system features a 640x480 resolution with 16 colors, which Davis claimed were specified by God. TempleOS includes a variety of programs, such as games and a flight simulator, all inspired by biblical themes. Throughout the development of TempleOS, Davis struggled immensely with his mental health. His schizophrenia led to numerous hospitalizations and episodes of psychosis. Davis's online presence often reflected his troubled state of mind, with many of his communications being incoherent or marked by paranoia and conspiracy theories. Despite these challenges when discussing technical topics, Davis often remained lucid and displayed remarkable insight and expertise, despite losing touch with reality more generally. TempleOS received a mix of curiosity, admiration, and sympathy from the tech community. Some praised the operating system as a testament to Davis's dedication and technical prowess, while others viewed it as a fascinating, albeit impractical, curiosity. In the hacker and programming communities, Davis garnered a following, with some viewing him as a tragic genius. Further, in general online culture, his coinage of the term glowy for government agents has come to be widely understood to refer to federal agents. Terry Davis's troubled life came to a tragic end on August 11, 2018, when he was struck and killed by a train. The haunted Sydney Harbour Bridge. The Sydney Harbour Bridge, an iconic symbol of Australia, is known not only for its architectural brilliance, but also for a disturbing urban legend and ghost story attached to it. Opened in 1932, this steel-through arch bridge connects the Sydney Central Business District to the North Shore. Often referred to as the coat hanger due to its distinctive design, the bridge has a rich history intertwined with stories of mystery and the supernatural. One of the most chilling legends associated with the Sydney Harbour Bridge involves its pylons. Urban lore suggests that during the bridge's construction from 1923 to 1932, several workers fell into the massive concrete pylons. According to urban legend, the bodies of these workers were never recovered, becoming forever entombed within the bridge's structure. It is said that at night, the ghostly figures of those perished workers are sometimes seen walking along the bridge. These sightings have been reported by both locals and tourists, contributing to the bridge's eerie allure. Paranormal investigators and enthusiasts often cite the Sydney Harbour Bridge as a hotspot for ghostly activities. Some theories suggest that the high level of emotional energy and tragic incidents during the bridge's construction could be the reason behind these paranormal occurrences. The White Lady of Worstead Church. St. Mary's Church in Worstead, a village in northeast Norfolk, is renowned not only for its medieval architecture, but also for its resident ghost, known as the White Lady. Worstead has a rich history, with documentation of the village dating back to the time of the Doomsday Book. The village was once a significant center for the wool trade, which brought considerable wealth and led to the construction of the impressive St. Mary's Church in the 14th century. The church, a prime example of a wool church, features beautiful stained glass windows, intricate woodwork, and several historical memorials. Also, for a bit of historical background, these were churches that were funded by donations from extremely wealthy wool merchants or large-scale sheep farm owners. The legend of the White Lady dates back centuries and has been passed down through generations. According to local lore, the White Lady is the spirit of a benevolent woman who appears to those in need of healing. This spectral figure is said to manifest particularly on Christmas Eve. One of the most famous sightings occurred in 1975. Diane Berthelot visited St. Mary's Church with her husband and son on a hot August day. While sitting quietly in a pew, Diane felt a sense of peace wash over her. Unbeknownst to her, her husband took a photograph that later revealed a ghostly figure dressed in white, sitting behind her. This image is often cited as compelling evidence of the White Lady's existence and has fueled ongoing interest in the legend. The White Lady's legend has given rise to various theories and speculations. Some believe she is a benevolent holy woman from the medieval period who continues to watch over the church. Others suggest she might be the spirit of a woman who experienced great sorrow, leading her to linger in the mortal realm, bringing peace to others that she cannot find herself. The legend of the White Lady has significantly impacted local culture. The New Inn, a pub near the church, was renamed the White Lady in her honor. Further, the legend attracts tourists to the region, hoping to get a view of this elusive, friendly ghost. The slaying of Dorothy Jane Scott. Dorothy Jane Scott, a 32-year-old single mother from California, disappeared on May 28, 1980. Dorothy lived with her aunt and her 4-year-old son, Sean, in Stanton, California. She worked as a secretary for 2 head shops which were located in Anaheim. Known for her quiet and reserved nature, Dorothy's life took a dark turn when she began receiving anonymous phone calls in early 1980. The caller alternated between professing love for Dorothy and making violent threats, adding to the concern. The caller indicated that he was constantly watching her and provided details to indicate that he had at least some knowledge of her movements. These disturbing calls made Dorothy anxious and fearful, prompting her to take self-defense classes and consider buying a gun. The fateful night of her disappearance began as usual, with Dorothy at work. Dorothy attended a staff meeting, during which she noticed her co-worker, Conrad Bostron, looking extremely unwell. Concerned, she offered to drive him to the hospital, accompanied by another co-worker, Pam Head. At the hospital, it was determined that Conrad had been bitten by a black widow spider. After he was treated, Dorothy went to retrieve her car to pick them up from the hospital entrance. However, when Pam and Conrad saw Dorothy's car approaching, its headlights blinded them, making it impossible to see the driver. The car sped past them and disappeared. Initially, they assumed she had an emergency involving her son, but when she didn't return, they reported her missing. Hours later, her car was found burning in an alley about 10 miles from the hospital, but there was no sign of Dorothy. A week after Dorothy's disappearance, her parents began receiving phone calls from an unidentified man claiming he had her. The calls, which continued for years, were brief and usually made when Dorothy's mother, Vera, was home alone. The caller taunted the family, alternating between claims that he had Dorothy or that he had already finished her off. Despite significant police efforts, the caller was never traced. On June 12, 1980, a story about Dorothy's case was published in the local newspaper. That same day, the editor received a call from a man who claimed responsibility for her disappearance, revealing details that had not been publicized at that point. This mystery caller was able to identify details such as the color of Dorothy's scarf and the spider bite incident that brought her to the hospital. This led investigators to strongly believe this unknown caller was indeed involved in her disappearance in some capacity. Dorothy's remains were discovered on August 6, 1984, by a construction worker in Santa Ana Canyon, about 30 feet from the road. The bones, partly charred, were found alongside a turquoise ring and a watch that her mother confirmed belonged to Dorothy. Authorities determined that her remains had been there for about 2 years, dating back to a brush fire in 1982. However, due to the state of her remains, the exact cause of her demise could not be determined. Even after the discovery of her remains, the mysterious phone calls continued. The same man resumed calling Dorothy's parents, further tormenting them until they moved away and changed their number. Despite extensive investigations, neither the identity of the caller nor the circumstances leading to Dorothy's disappearance have been uncovered. The case remains open, with no arrests or definitive answers to provide closure to her family. The Keddie Cabin slayings. In the serene woods of Keddie, California, a small resort town nestled in the Sierra Nevada, a disturbing incident took place in Cabin 28 on April 11, 1981. The incident involved the Sharp family. Sue Sharp, a 36-year-old mother, had relocated from Connecticut to Keddie with her 5 children: John, 15, Sheila, 14, Tina, 12, Rick, 10, and Greg, 5. Sue had been living in Cabin 28 for a short time before the tragedy struck. On that fateful night, Sue was at home with her sons, John and Greg, her daughter Tina, and John's friend, Dana Wingate. The discovery was made the next morning by Sheila, who had spent the night at a neighbor's house. Upon returning home, she found a harrowing scene: her mother, her brother John, and Dana in the living room, lifeless and bound with electrical wire and medical tape. Rick and Greg were thankfully unharmed. They were found sleeping in an adjoining bedroom along with their friend, Justin Smart, the son of one of the suspects, Martin Smart. The 3 boys were unaware of the violence that had occurred in the other part of the cabin. Tina Sharp was notably missing from the cabin, sparking immediate concern and a massive search effort. Her remains were discovered 3 years later, in 1984, nearly 50 miles away in a rural area of Feather Falls, deepening the mystery surrounding the case. The investigation, led by the Plumas County Sheriff's Office, revealed several puzzling details. There were signs of forced entry, and the telephone had been taken off the hook, possibly to prevent any calls for help. The lack of fingerprints at the scene suggested the perpetrators had taken measures to avoid detection. Several suspects emerged during the investigation, with 2 men, Martin Smart and his friend John Bubedi, drawing significant attention. Smart, who lived nearby, had reportedly had a contentious relationship with Sue Sharp. Both men had questionable alibis and were known to have spent time at the local bar the night of the incident. Despite these leads, no charges were filed due to insufficient evidence. A mysterious letter from Martin Smart to his wife, discovered years later, contained an unsettling admission. Smart mentioned that he had a part in what happened, though he insisted it was in a fit of rage. This letter, along with new witness testimonies, reignited interest in the case, yet definitive answers remained elusive. In 2016, a hammer believed to be one of the missing pieces of evidence was found in a nearby pond. This discovery, combined with advancements in DNA technology, offered a glimmer of hope for solving the case. In a very unusual twist, DNA evidence appears to suggest that the perpetrator of the acts is an individual who is still alive. This is unusual because both Smart and Bubedi are long deceased. Despite these efforts, the identity of the perpetrators remains unknown. Some suggest it was a random act of violence by transient individuals passing through the area. The involvement of multiple individuals seems likely given the nature of the crime scene and the extent of the struggle. The lack of resolution has led to numerous conspiracy theories, including possible cover-ups or mishandlings by local law enforcement. The small community of Keddie, already devastated by the incident, was further strained by the persistent rumors and lingering fear that the culprits were still at large in the community. The disappearance of Francis Lovel. Francis Lovel, 1st Viscount Lovel, was born in 1456 into a noble family with strong ties to the Yorkist cause. He inherited his title and estates from his father and became a staunch supporter of King Richard III and one of his closest personal allies. Lovel's loyalty to Richard III earned him significant influence and positions of power, including being made a Knight of the Garter and appointed as Lord Chamberlain. His close relationship with the king was solidified through his participation in battles and his involvement in the royal court. The pivotal moment in Lovel's life came in 1485, when Richard III faced Henry Tudor, later Henry VII, at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Richard III was defeated, and Henry Tudor ascended to the throne, marking the end of the Plantagenet dynasty. In the aftermath of this decisive battle, many of Richard III's supporters, including Lovel, were forced into hiding or exile. Lovel initially managed to evade capture and participated in further attempts to overthrow Henry VII. He played a prominent role in the Lambert-Simnel Rebellion of 1487, which aimed to place the pretender Lambert Simnel on the throne as Edward VI. The rebellion culminated in the Battle of Stoke Field, where the Yorkist forces were decisively defeated. Lovel reportedly fled the battlefield and vanished from historical records. The mystery of Francis Lovel's disappearance has spawned numerous theories and legends. One popular story suggests that Lovel sought refuge in a secret underground chamber at his ancestral home in Oxfordshire. According to this legend, Lovel remained hidden in this concealed location, where he eventually perished. Centuries later, in the 18th century, workmen supposedly discovered a hidden chamber containing the skeletal remains of a man seated at a table, believed by some to be Lovel. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this tale, though it remains part of local folklore. Another theory posits that Lovel managed to escape to the continent, seeking asylum with other Yorkist exiles in Burgundy. This theory is supported by the fact that several prominent Yorkists, including Lovel's contemporaries, found refuge in foreign courts. However, there are no definitive records confirming Lovel's presence abroad, leaving this theory speculative. Additionally, some historians suggest that Lovel may have lived under an assumed identity in England or Ireland, avoiding detection by Henry VII's agents. The lack of concrete evidence and the passage of time have made it difficult to substantiate this theory. Nonetheless, it remains a plausible scenario given the political climate of the period. Despite numerous searches, theories, and legends, the ultimate fate of Francis Lovel is still unknown, and likely always will be. The Kalachi sleep epidemic. The Kalachi sleep epidemic occurred in the small village of Kalachi, located in Kazakhstan. It first came to international attention in March 2013, when residents began experiencing inexplicable episodes of falling asleep suddenly, sometimes for days at a time. The village of Kalachi is situated in the Issyk district of Akmola region. It has a population of about 600 people, most of whom are ethnic Russians. The region is known for its harsh winters and remote location. Despite its seclusion, the village became the focus of extensive media coverage and scientific investigation due to the mysterious sleep episodes. The first reported cases occurred in the spring of 2013. Residents, including children, adults, and the elderly, would suddenly fall into a deep sleep during their daily activities. These episodes could last anywhere from a few hours to several days. Those affected often experienced dizziness, nausea, and hallucinations before succumbing to the sleep episodes. Upon waking, they had little to no memory of what had occurred. Local and international scientists flocked to Kalachi to investigate the cause of this strange phenomenon. Initially, there was speculation about a wide range of potential causes, from infectious diseases to psychological factors. However, none of these theories provided a satisfactory explanation. The situation became more puzzling as the number of cases continued to rise. One of the most compelling theories was related to environmental factors. Kalachi is located near the abandoned Soviet-era uranium mines in the nearby town of Krasnogorsk. These mines were operational during the mid-20th century, but were closed in the 1990s after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Some experts hypothesized that the uranium mines might be releasing harmful substances, such as radon gas, into the environment. Radon, a radioactive gas, is known to cause health issues, including fatigue and respiratory problems. In 2014, a team of researchers conducted extensive tests on the soil, water, and air in and around Kalachi. They discovered elevated levels of carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons in the air, which can lead to symptoms similar to those experienced by the residents. The theory posited that these gases were being released from the abandoned mines and were affecting the villagers. However, the exact mechanism by which these gases could induce prolonged sleep remained unclear. Another theory suggested that the phenomenon could be related to the high concentration of carbon dioxide in the area. CO2 can cause drowsiness and, in high concentrations, can lead to unconsciousness. The proximity of Kalachi to the uranium mines led some researchers to speculate that the mines could be a source of CO2 emissions. Measurements did indeed show elevated CO2 levels in some areas of the village, supporting this hypothesis. Despite these findings, the Kalachi sleep epidemic continued to confound scientists. In addition to the environmental theories, some researchers considered psychological and social factors. The isolated nature of the village, combined with the anxiety and fear surrounding the sleep episodes, might have contributed to a mass psychogenic illness. This phenomenon occurs when a group of people, usually in close proximity, exhibit similar physical symptoms without an identifiable organic cause. However, this theory did not account for the environmental findings. Throughout the epidemic, the government took various measures to assist the affected residents. Medical teams were deployed to monitor and treat those experiencing sleep episodes. Some residents were relocated to safer areas to reduce their exposure to potential environmental hazards. Despite these efforts, the mystery persisted, and new cases continued to emerge sporadically. By 2015, the frequency of the sleep episodes began to decline. This decrease was attributed to the relocation of some residents and the implementation of measures to improve the air quality in Kalachi. However, no definitive cause was ever identified, and the true nature of the Kalachi sleep epidemic remains a mystery to this day. The Storyville Slayer. The Storyville Slayer, a mysterious figure responsible for a string of heinous acts in New Orleans, terrorized the city from 1991 to 1996. I note that upon research, this purported serial wrongdoer appears to be two people acting independently and committing the same heinous acts. I suspect it will be obvious to you shortly why the Storyville Slayer cannot have been just one person. But I digress. The first known survivor, referred to as Brenda, was attacked in July 1991. She described her assailant as a well-dressed, professional-looking black male with a muscular build driving a blue Buick. Brenda's testimony led to the release of a composite sketch that temporarily halted the attacks. The Slayer's known victims were primarily women of African American descent, between the ages of 17 and 40, many of whom were involved in the local underground economy. These women were found in various states of decomposition, often in remote swamps or canals, making identification and the determination of exact causes of their demise difficult. A notable suspect in the case was Victor Gant, a New Orleans police officer who had worked the red light district for a number of years. Gant was implicated due to his relationship with Sharon Robinson, one of the victims. Robinson had previously accused Gant of physical abuse, which he denied. Despite being a prime suspect, there was insufficient evidence to conclusively link him to the series of crimes, and he was never formally charged. However, due to the suspicion surrounding him, as well as other allegations of wrongdoing, he was dismissed from the police force. Another significant suspect was Russell Elwood, a photographer and occasional cab driver. If you're just listening to this, Russell Elwood does not fit Brenda's description of the perpetrator. For instance, rather than being a well-dressed black male, he is a white male with a decidedly scruffy appearance. Elwood's behavior and presence near many of the crime scenes attracted police attention. In 1997, he even called into the Howard Stern show, claiming responsibility for several of the attacks, although this was never officially verified. Despite standing trial for some of the slayings, Elwood was acquitted due to a lack of concrete evidence. The investigation into the Storyville Slayer was extensive and involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. A task force was established in 1995 to consolidate efforts across jurisdictions. This collaborative approach was prompted by the discovery of numerous victims, often found in a 3-mile radius of one another, and shared forensic similarities. Despite these efforts, the case remains unsolved, leading to various theories about the true identity of the Storyville Slayer. Some believe the perpetrator might be a local familiar with the area and its underbelly, possibly leveraging insider knowledge to evade capture. Others speculate that there may have been multiple offenders mimicking each other's methods, thereby complicating the investigation. Given the varied and conflicting descriptions of this individual or individuals, it appears plain and obvious that this must be more than one offender. Paul Vigay. Paul Vigay, born in October 1964 in Croydon, was a British computer consultant known for his expertise in computer software and his contributions to the study of UFOs and crop circles. His career in computing began early, with a keen interest sparked during his school years when he used early computers. He would go on to make a variety of contributions towards the development of RISC-OS, a lesser-known but still quite widely used operating system. Vigay's fascination with the unexplained extended beyond his computing endeavors. He was deeply involved in UFO research and became a prominent figure in the crop circle community from the early 1990s. His research contributed to the 2002 film Signs, as well as numerous documentaries. His work in this field earned him a reputation as a leading expert, blending his technical skills with a passion for the paranormal. On February 20th, 2009, Vigay's body was found off Portsmouth Beach, leading to widespread shock in the UFO community, as well as significant speculation. The previous night, he had been reported missing after a series of emotional events involving his girlfriend, Andrea Smith. The couple had recently broken up, and Vigay left a note saying, "I love you," along with his passwords. Despite this, the coroner ruled the circumstances of his passing a mystery, citing a lack of evidence to determine whether it was an accident or intentional. This ruling left many questions unanswered, particularly given the absence of a note, significant alcohol or substance consumption, or any signs of a struggle. Speculation about the true nature of Vigay's demise continues to this day. Some theories suggest he may have been overwhelmed by personal and financial pressures. Others point to the possibility of foul play given his involvement in controversial fields of study. However, no definitive evidence has emerged to support any single theory, and the mystery remains a topic of intrigue within the communities he was part of. El Sombreron. El Sombreron is one of the most enduring figures in Guatemalan folklore, known for his distinctive appearance and eerie habits. El Sombreron, also referred to as Zipitio, is often described as a short man dressed entirely in black, with a large hat that covers much of his face. His outfit includes a thick black belt and black boots with noisy attachments. One of his most peculiar traits is his obsession with braiding. He is known to braid the manes and tails of horses, and when no horses are available, he turns his attention to the hair of young women. According to legend, El Sombreron roams the streets with a group of mules carrying coal. He typically appears at dusk, and his presence is marked by the sound of his boots and the sight of his large hat. When he finds a young woman who catches his fancy, he serenades her with a silver guitar, tying his mules outside her home. However, his attention is far from benign. The women he targets often find their food contaminated with soil, making it difficult for them to eat. Further, the eerie serenades are said to make it very difficult to sleep. This combination of serenades and sabotage leads to a state of obsession and illness for the victims. One of the most well-known stories associated with El Sombreron involves a young woman named Susana. Susana, noted for her long hair and large hazelnut-colored eyes, was serenaded by El Sombreron one night while she admired the moon from her balcony. Her parents, alarmed by the attention, forced her inside, but El Sombreron continued to haunt her, singing to her and contaminating her food with dirt. In a desperate attempt to save their daughter, Susana's parents cut her hair and took it to a priest, who blessed it with holy water. This act finally drove El Sombreron away, suggesting that the legend may serve as a cautionary tale. The cultural significance of El Sombreron extends beyond mere folklore. He represents the archetypal boogeyman, a figure used to instill fear and promote societal norms. The legend warns young women against engaging with strangers and succumbing to flattery. El Sombreron's black attire and concealed identity emphasize the dangers of hidden intentions and deceitful appearances. The use of black, often associated with misfortune and the supernatural, reinforces his role as a malevolent figure. Interestingly, there are theories suggesting that El Sombreron's roots might extend back to Mayan traditions, where significant value was placed on braids and long hair. The slaying of Lindsay Buziak. Lindsay Buziak, a 24-year-old real estate agent in Victoria, British Columbia, was found deceased in a vacant property on February 2, 2008. On February 1, 2008, Lindsay received a call from a woman requesting to view a high-end property with her husband. The woman spoke in what Lindsay believed to be a Latin American accent. Despite finding the call unusual, Lindsay agreed to meet the prospective buyers the next day. She shared her concerns with her boyfriend, Jason Zylo, who offered to accompany her to the showing, but Lindsay declined, preferring to handle it alone. On the day of the showing, Lindsay met the unidentified couple at the house. Witnesses saw her greet a man and a woman, described as Caucasian, with the woman being in her mid-30s and wearing a distinctive dress. Around 5:30 p.m., Lindsay and the couple entered the house. Shortly after, Jason arrived at the property, noticing through the window what he thought was Lindsay conversing with the clients. He waited in his car for about 20 minutes, growing concerned when Lindsay failed to respond to his calls and texts. Jason, along with a colleague, eventually entered the house through an unlocked back door. They found Lindsay in the master bedroom, the victim of a brutal attack. The suspects had vanished without a trace, leaving no significant forensic evidence behind. The investigation into Lindsay's demise has uncovered several leads and theories. Early on, suspicion fell on those close to her, including Jason Zylo and his family. However, the police cleared them, finding no evidence linking them to the crime. One prominent theory involves Lindsay's brief trip to Calgary in December 2007. During this visit, she reconnected with an old friend who was later involved in a major drug bust. Some speculate that Lindsay was mistakenly believed to be an informant, leading to a retaliatory attack by a drug cartel. However, investigators dismissed this theory, noting the amateurish nature of the crime, which did not match a professional job. Another intriguing angle is the mysterious caller who arranged the property viewing. The phone used to contact Lindsay was a burner phone, purchased in Vancouver under a false name, and only used for this purpose. This suggests a premeditated plan, yet the identities and whereabouts of the couple remain unknown. In 2020, the authorities indicated that they suspected that an individual who was on Lindsay's Facebook friends list was responsible for the act. The authorities suggested that this person was a known violent criminal. Despite numerous appeals and a substantial reward offered for information, Lindsay Buziak's case remains unsolved at present. The Miniwashitu. The Miniwashitu, also known as the Missouri River Monster, is a creature rooted in the legends of the Dakota people. The creature is described as a monstrous semi-aquatic beast with a terrifying howl that echoes through the river valleys. The earliest accounts of the Miniwashitu date back to the Dakota Sioux tribes who inhabited the plains of North Dakota. They described the creature as a malevolent spirit that haunted the Missouri River, appearing during the spring thaw. This creature was believed to have the power to drive people insane if they saw it during daylight, but it could be glimpsed safely after sunset until midnight. The Miniwashitu is often depicted as a giant bison-like river monster with a single horn and a body covered in reddish-brown fur. The creature is also known for its mournful, almost human-like cries that can be heard for miles, causing unease among those who hear it. Some believe it is a spirit or a demon, while others suggest it could be a prehistoric creature that has somehow survived in the depths of the river. Cryptozoologists have speculated that the Miniwashitu might be related to other legendary water creatures like the Kelpie. One of the most famous tales involves two groups of Native Americans who, while preparing for a battle on the Missouri River, were suddenly attacked by the Miniwashitu. This incident reportedly left such an impression that both peoples avoided the area for years to come. Another story tells of a fisherman who encountered the creature and was driven to madness, emphasizing the peril of seeing the Miniwashitu in daylight. The Licked Hand. The Licked Hand, also known as Humans Can Lick Too, is an urban legend that has been a staple of campfire tales and spooky storytelling sessions. The Licked Hand's origins trace back to the early 20th century, with some sources suggesting it was first recorded in the 1960s. The story gained widespread attention when it appeared in Alvin Schwartz's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series in the early 1980s. Notably, this series popularized many urban legends and has terrorized generations of school children who have had the fortune or misfortune to open these books. The most common version of the story involves a young girl left home alone for the first time with her dog. Her parents advise her to lock all the doors and windows before they leave. As the night progresses, she hears a dripping sound but ignores it, seeking comfort by letting her dog, who she believes is sleeping under the bed, to lick her hand from under the bed. When the dripping sound persists, she finally checks it out only to find her dog dead, and the dripping noise is its blood. The horrifying twist reveals a message scrawled in blood. Humans can lick too. There does not appear to be any basis in fact for the story. However, it is still passed along as an urban legend. You know, the kind that, quote, happened to a friend of mine's second cousin. Tengu. The Tengu are one of the most well-known and oldest documented yokai. Like most ancient yokai, they originate from a blending of Chinese and Japanese mythological traditions in the mid-1st millennia AD. The concept of Tengu first appeared in Japan around the 6th century, influenced by Chinese legends of the Tiangu, or heavenly dog. These celestial creatures were often associated with meteorological phenomena like comets or shooting stars, and were considered harbingers of war and disaster. The earliest Japanese record of Tengu is found in the Nihon Shoki, an ancient chronicle from 720 AD, describing a heavenly dog that caused a disturbance and was interpreted as an ominous sign. Despite the name, they were not depicted as dogs, but rather birds or monkeys. Beginning in the Heian period, which ran from the 8th century to the 12th century AD, Tengu underwent a radical shift away from their Chinese inspiration. Tengu began to be depicted as monstrous, bird-like creatures with both avian and human features. Their present appearance and characteristics began to crystallize during this era, influenced by Buddhist and Shinto tradition. By the 13th century, Tengu imagery had finally completely shifted. They were mostly depicted as part human, part bird figures, often resembling priests or monks, specifically mountain ascetics of the Shugendo tradition. Tengu were commonly shown wearing distinctive monk attire and wielding a staff. During the Kamakura period running from 1185 to 1333, Tengu legends became more widespread, portraying them as both protectors and punishers. They were often involved in stories of abductions and possessions, where their victims, particularly children and monks, would be returned in a state of delirium or profound change. Tengu are renowned for their supernatural abilities. They are masters of martial arts, and are said to have taught these skills to legendary warriors. One of their most famous powers is their control over the wind, often depicted with a magical feather fan that could stir up powerful gusts. Their abilities also include shape-shifting and possession. Tengu can transform into human or animal forms and possess people, particularly those with weak or corrupt spirits. This has made them figures of both fear and reverence in Japanese religious and cultural traditions. Auto-brewery syndrome. Auto-brewery syndrome, also known as gut fermentation syndrome, is a rare and intriguing medical condition where the human body produces alcohol internally. This occurs due to an overgrowth of certain fungi or bacteria in the gut that ferment carbohydrates into ethanol. This leads to symptoms of alcohol intoxication without consuming alcohol. The first documented case of auto-brewery syndrome dates back to 1946. In this case, a 5-year-old South African child exhibited alcohol presence in the stomach during an emergency surgery. This early case highlighted the potential for endogenous alcohol production, but did not immediately lead to widespread recognition of the syndrome. Further cases were reported in Japan in the 1970s, primarily involving individuals with Candida yeast overgrowth. The condition remained largely obscure until more recent years, when various cases brought it to light in medical literature and the media. Despite its unusual presentation, auto-brewery syndrome remains underdiagnosed and often misunderstood. The condition's rarity and the stigma of appearing intoxicated without drinking alcohol contribute to the diagnostic challenges. The exact triggers for auto-brewery syndrome are still not fully understood, but factors such as antibiotic use, diabetes, and Crohn's disease are speculated to be involved. Researchers continue to explore the complexities of auto-brewery syndrome, particularly its microbiome-related triggers. The disruption of gut homeostasis, often following antibiotic use, appears to be a significant factor. Some theorize that this disruption allows for a potentially catastrophic overgrowth of ethanol-producing microorganisms. Ongoing research into the human microbiome and its relationship with auto-brewery syndrome holds promise for better diagnostic and treatment strategies. The disappearance of Marshall Iwasa. This case is a suggestion by patron and Discord community member Boom Slang. Marshall Iwasa, a 26-year-old man from Lethbridge, Alberta, disappeared under mysterious circumstances on November 17, 2019. His last known activity was visiting his storage locker in Lethbridge. His whereabouts after this visit to the locker remain unknown, and have now become a matter of significant speculation. Iwasa's burned-out truck was discovered 6 days later, on November 23, 2019, in a remote area near Pemberton, British Columbia. The location of the truck, along with the fact that it was intentionally set on fire, raised many questions and has fueled various theories about what might have happened to him. Iwasa was reported missing after his family realized he had not returned to Calgary, as he had told them he would. Extensive search operations were conducted by both law enforcement and his family. The search included the use of dogs, drones, and on-foot efforts, but no significant evidence was found. The Lethbridge Police and Royal Canadian Mounted Police were involved. However, due to the lack of evidence indicating foul play, the case remained a missing persons investigation rather than a criminal one. Several unusual details have emerged during the investigation. For instance, the steering column of Iwasa's truck was missing, which was confirmed not to have been removed by the RCMP. This, along with the lack of fingerprints or DNA testing due to the case not being classified as criminal, has left many questions unanswered. Another oddity is the complete lack of activity on Iwasa's bank cards and no gas station surveillance footage capturing his vehicle along the route from Lethbridge to Pemberton. This route, typically requiring multiple fuel stops, leaves a gap in the timeline that investigators have been unable to fill. Further, no fuel canisters appear to have been found in or around the vehicle, which could provide a logical explanation for the lack of stops. Iwasa's family has been relentless in their search for answers. They have created social media groups, hired private investigators, and even conducted their own searches of the remote areas where his truck was found. They have also erected billboards and distributed missing person posters to raise awareness. The private investigations confirmed that the truck was set on fire deliberately, ruling out an accidental cause like an engine malfunction. Despite these efforts, no new leads have emerged, and the lack of substantial evidence has been a major hurdle in progressing the investigation. If you have any information in relation to the disappearance of Marshall Iwasa, please contact the Lethbridge Police Department. Tama, the station master cat, was a calico cat whose story became a symbol of hope and revival for the Kishigawa line in Wakayama Prefecture, Japan. Born a stray, Tama roamed around Kishi Station, where she was fed by Toshiko Koyama, the station manager. When the railway line faced closure in 2006, due to financial struggles and declining passenger numbers, a unique solution was proposed, appointing Tama as the station master. In January 2007, Tama officially became the station master of Kishi Station, complete with a specially made hat and a gold name tag. Tama's appointment garnered significant media attention, drawing visitors from all over Japan and beyond. This surge in tourism helped revive the financially struggling railway. The number of passengers increased by 17% in just 1 month, and by the end of her first year, the number of riders had grown by 10%. Tama's role was not limited to greeting passengers. Her charming demeanor turned her into a local and international celebrity, with major news outlets like CNN and the BBC covering her story. The station was redesigned to reflect her popularity, with a station building that resembled a cat's face and a train, the Tama train, decorated with her likeness. As Tama's fame grew, she received several promotions. In 2008, she was named Super Station Master, granting her an office, a converted ticket booth with a litter tray and bed. She was later promoted to Managing Executive Officer and eventually became the honorary president of Wakayama Electric Railway. Tama's influence extended beyond boosting passenger numbers and climbing the corporate cat tree. She inspired a range of merchandise, from keychains to candies, which further supported the railway's finances. Her impact on the local economy was substantial, contributing an approximate $10 million American over the course of her lifetime. In June 2015, after 8 years of faithful service, Tama passed away. Her passing was marked by a Shinto-style funeral, attended by thousands. During this ceremony, she received her final and most significant promotion. She was enshrined as Tama Daimyo Jin, a minor deity, in a small shrine at Kishi Station. Pretty enviable career trajectory for Tama, I must say. Jimmy here. Hope you've enjoyed part 53 of this ever-expanding Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg series. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This really helps my channel grow and allows me to dedicate substantial time and effort to producing content. Also, don't forget to hit the share button if you know someone who might appreciate it. Make sure to check out the YouTube membership and Patreon. You can support my channel for as little as 99 cents a month. Shout out to my patrons Noah Schubert, Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Director Delta, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, and Blasphemous. Also, special shout out to newest patron Will Rohn. Welcome aboard. Big shout out to YouTube member Jordan All. Until next time, stay safe and healthy. Peace out, everyone.